Welcome to Art and Up. I'm Melony Smirniotis.
And I'm Kristine Ballard. And this is a place where creatives connect, cultivate and support each other's artistic journey. Today we are interviewing the lovely
John Rice. Welcome, John.
Welcome, John.
Yes, thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Excellent. We're going to get stuck into this. John, tell us, when did you first know that you wanted to be an artist?
Well, I guess I always was really interested in it when I was young. I used to always draw and that when I was little, and it's just sort of something that sat in the background. When I was at high school, I did a little bit of art in year 7 and got a taste for it. And the art teachers were always coming and hassling me about doing art, but I wanted to do something that was going to get me a job, So I did ancient modern history, economics, all that sort of stuff, and the two things that I really love, art and music, I never did, because I sort of thought they were, something just recreational. I didn't think that there was something I could do, down the line, and I ended up becoming a primary school teacher. So I was kicking myself later on. Art and music would have been fantastic to have studied at high school.
When you were teaching that, did you always sneak a little bit of art and music into your
yeah. Primary school, so you could do a little bit of stuff. I did a lot of drawing. Life drawing, that with the primary school kids. It used to be great. Set the kids up as a model and get the charcoals out and do some work, like charcoals and crayons and things, and do some actual life drawing. We actually did a bit of that when I was in primary school. The teachers used to do a bit more drawing with us when I was in primary school. We had those horrible black crayons to draw with the sausage arms and sausage legs and stuff. They used to teach us a bit about that, the proportions of the head and things. I remember doing.
So, John, when did you decide to dedicate more time to being an artist? You mentioned that you were a teacher. Yeah. When did you make a shift?
Yeah, well, I was very keen. I say when I was younger, and when I went to do my teacher training, I did all the art courses and the music courses, and I got right into art there. And I got really pumped with it back then when I was about 19, 20, and I tried to change in become an art teacher instead of a primary school teacher. But I didn't have HSC art, so I didn't have the prerequisites. They wouldn't let me into the course. So then it just dropped off. I had started work, had a family, had kids, and then I went to teach over in England on teacher exchange. And there was a fellow there. He was the deputy in the school, and he painted. And he used to come in every Monday and rave about the paintings he did. And I never saw anything he did, but he was always so enthusiastic about it that I said to my wife, next birthday, get me a set of oil paints. I think this is something I've always wanted to do, and I'd like to get back into it. It's just something that's always been sitting there, but I've never done anything about, other than a little bit of playing around with things. So from then on, it just took off. I got that set of little roundy Georgian, 12 colours and a little plastic palette and a couple of little brushes, and had no idea what I was doing. But that was it. I got really enthused about it from there on. That was just.
So you didn't go to classes or anything. You just.
No, the first couple of years, no, I didn't. Just tried to work it out for myself. I didn't know anybody. Who painted. I didn't, I was dying to find somebody who could tell me what I needed to do, because I was trying to get better, but I didn't really know what to do. And then I met a fellow up in Mudgee, Keith Norris. He's passed away now, Keith, unfortunately. But he was a real living, breathing artist. He did that for a living. He worked solely from his art, and he was mainly a watercolorist, pen and wash. He used to teach up at the Mitchell School and stuff like that. I met him at Mudgee, and he used to let me go into his studio. When I went up to Mudgee, cost me $40, and I'd spend a day in the studio with Keith, and he would set up a still life for me, or he'd get his big box of photographs, and I'd pick something out, and he would come around every now and then and tell me, something I could do to fix it up. Usually he'd come around and say, that was really good what you were doing, and now you've changed it.
You left it.
I tell students that today, they don't know what's enough and what's right. And they try to finesse everything too early, things like that. So I learned a lot of good stuff from Keith, just from being around him. And then I found a couple of workshops and went to a couple of workshops, and I started to find out what was going on in the art world. I didn't really know. And I joined the local art society and the Peon Art Society, and then I went to one class there, never again. That was terrible. This lady was going around. That was 8 years ago. She's long gone. That was 7 years ago.
Asterix.
Who was doing watercolor, and she came around and she's saying to him now, just get the brush and flick up the grasses like this. And every time he went to do it, she had a brush. She kept hitting him on the hand, going, no, not like that. He's too scared to do anything. And I thought, no, this isn't for me. I don't think this is exactly for me. But I went to a couple of workshops with some people, some good people. I went with John Wilson, Robert Wilson. Robert was the first guy that I went, did a workshop with at Bathurst. I went up to the Mitchell School at Bathurst, did a workshop with Robert Wilson for 5 days, and he really is an expert.
Legend of gum trees and light,
Yeah.
and a beautiful, beautiful man. Yes, very, very giving and helpful too. Yeah, just really gentle nature, like his trees. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. They were good fellows to learn a bit from, you know. And after that, then you sort of develop your own style, and lots of practice. I used to go out painting up at Mudgee. My wife's a Mudgee girl, so we were going to Mudgee a lot. And
drinking, lots of drinking, John. I bet there's lots.
No, not so much of that, but just wineries that many.
You're the guy out in the paddock past the wineries, aren't you? Yeah.
I met Alan Fazell at Mudgee, which was good. Alan lived a few doors down from my mother-in-law, and Alan was another professional artist and just an absolute legend of plein air painting. And every time I go up there, I'd go down to see Alan, and we'd go out painting together. You know, he'd just pick the spot, and I'd paint whatever was there, and talk art, and you know, and I learned so much from him because he just lived and breathed art. Alan Fazell, tremendous artist, tremendous painter.
I know that you do a lot of plein air painting, always out and about. But in the background, do you work in the studio?
Yeah, I do. I work. Most of my work start plein air. The best ones do anyway, you know. But when I'm out, I go on painting trips. I might be away for a week, and I'll do maybe 20-something paintings, maybe 30, you know. But I'll also bring back a couple of hundred photographs, you know, of places I take, because you can't. I mean, a painting takes you an hour, 2 hours to do, and during that time, you know, that's a fair while. But you can get a lot of photos that you can bring back that you can take instantly and refer to, and bits that you just didn't have time to paint, and places where you couldn't stand to paint because there was no place to get run over if you tried to paint there, you know. So you get a quick run out, take a photo, jump back in your car. But you still can make something out of it. But the thing is, you have to have that plein air experience to understand how to make something out of the photograph. You know, I only ever paint of my own photographs that I've taken in places that I've been to, and because I understand that place and I understand how to correct the inaccuracies that the camera makes, because the camera tells lies. It doesn't tell you the truth when it comes to photographing landscape. I mean, I say to people, how many times have you been away on a holiday, taken some fantastic photos of some place and brought them back and think, why did I even take that photo? It doesn't look anything like that. That's not what it looked like. And that happens with me when I take photos when I'm out painting. You know, I might take 200 photos. Out of those, I might use 10. Because the other ones, some of the ones, I just look at them and think, I don't even know why I took that, because it doesn't look like anything.
John, at this point, we should say to everyone that you would call yourself an Australian impressionist. Would you? Is that your niche? That's what you would call that?
I don't know what niche it falls into, but they're the people that I admire the most, the impressionists. I like people who leave the painting with a bit of eye to do the work, where there's some subtleties in the brushwork. I'm not a big fan of super realism or anything like that. You know, I feel they're soulless sort of paintings. I love the stuff where the brushwork, clever brushwork. I remember seeing one of Pissaro's exhibitions in Sydney, and it was just wonderful. You know, like there was a lady with a parasol, and it was 2 brush strokes. So when you stood back a couple of meters from it, it was a lady with a parasol, and there's a horse and cart, and it's 3 brush strokes.
Yeah, just absolutely. Do that. Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
So, John, what mediums and materials do you use? You paint plein air, you're outside, outdoors. We know that you follow the traditional, I suppose, Australian impressionists that look for landscape. What materials do you use, or are your point of
I'm an oil painter exclusively. I've done a few watercolours, but not very many. And but love oil paint. Oil paint's just fantastic. Smell of it.
Oh, so that tells me you're a traditionalist and you use a lot of terps, which we're not allowed to use anymore, and a lot of solvent. You know, we have to use odorless solvent now. But you're from the school, I suppose, where you slap a lot of terpsy washes in first.
Yeah. When you're outdoors, that's fine. You know, indoors I'll use some of this sort of stuff. You know, which is archival mate, which is a fast drying.
Yeah.
Indoors and for workshops, I use that. I mean, my studio is very big, so terps in the studio doesn't bother me. Here I can open the doors up and you don't smell anything. My nose. But for workshops and things, I use the odorless solvents because people
And
get
do you have any preference of oil paints that you prefer? Have you worked through what do you like to work with? What kind of texture?
I work the best quality stuff. I use a fair bit of Winsor and Newton paints. I use a fair bit of Senelia. There's another brand that I used, and Langridge. Langridge. They're probably most of those. I've got one Art Spectrum that I use, Art Spectrum Cadmium Red, but nothing wrong with Art Spectrum paint. I just don't like their colours. The colours aren't true. Like yellow ochre, viridian, cobalt blue are 3. Yellow ochre, cobalt blue, and viridian. They're not the right colour. They're the yellow ochre Art Spectrum is really pale. You know.
Yeah, it's very different across brands, isn't it?
Viridian,
especially those Naples yellows and things like that. So you're telling us too that it sounds like you use a traditional palette, which is what we call an impressionist palette, because it lends itself to landscape colours. Is that right?
Yeah. I use quite a range of colours, but not in very much. Most of my colours are fairly basic. I make most of my painting up out of about 2 or 3 colours, and then a little drop here and a little drop there, you know, that I'll use. So most of my paintings, I'll use sets of warm greys to set them up, and I make my warm greys mainly at the moment. But most of my paintings, I make them out of ultramarine blue and transparent red oxide. Will make most of my greys. So they'll make black mixed evenly, and then they'll make nice warm greys. But then in mountains paintings and things, I'll use a fair bit of ultramarine blue and cadmium red. Will make a fair bit of some nice warm, make a touch of yellow ochre to grey it off a bit. And sometimes in the background, I use a bit of cobalt blue and permanent rose or something in the background to make the greys in there. But most of my paintings, you know, 90% of the paint on the canvas is probably made up out of the greys, and they're made out of 2 colours. You know, and then I'll put in a little bit of lemon yellow, a bit of yellow ochre here just for some foliage, and a little hint. One of my absolute favourite colours is cobalt turquoise light, which is a beautiful.
That's your magic little minty green thing you put your hat on. I know. The impressionist guys do these little red and blue, green.
If you want your colours to really pop, you know, you want your oranges and things to really pop. I'm sitting next to my palette here. If you want them to really pop, put them next to cobalt turquoise light or cobalt blue or something like that. Those nice, cool colours. So when you're trying to do the barks on trees and things like that, those little cool pops are what makes the thing really come. Or in mountains painting, where you've got a big bluff, you know, big katoomba, bluff. All the nice warmths in the sandstone are great, but you put a little bit of cobalt blue and stuff in there with it, just to set, and it really goes bang, you know, it sets it right off. Now, painting comes in 2s. Everything's in 2s. You've got your warms and your cools and your darks and your lights, you know, your thicks and your thins. All those sort of little juxtapositions are what makes the painting really work. So it's not bland. It has different facets to it.
So I've been fortunate enough to see you in action in the studio, you know, with your workshops, demonstrating and guiding people through. And you can see how prolific you are, how you really immerse yourself in the landscape. And it's often trees, which are your subject matter.
Do a lot of trees.
Sorry, Mel. Ever diverted from that subject, or what's your focus now?
I paint a lot of things, but quite often in the landscape, you need a subject in the front of your painting when you're painting landscapes, right? And quite often the only subject around in that landscape is a tree in the front. If you need an old shed, or you need a creek bed, or you need something in that to create a subject. Otherwise, it can become a very bland subject, you know, unless you're working small, you know, especially if you're working big. Like I do a lot of. I'll put a couple. So I do a lot of plein air work. So I mean, I do stuff plein air, like little harbour bridge. You know, I do mountain scenes. You know, I do. This is just some of my plein air paintings I've got sitting around. I was going to show you. Man, these are plein air works that haven't been finished yet, you know. So I go out and I paint them. That was down at Poet Kembla last week, just painting down there at Quarry down there. Things like that they're different. And then, of course, there's Gumtree. That was down at Schubert.
That's the signature.
That was one there, and then there's ones down there. Was a little creek down there. These are all, they're not finished paintings, by the way. These are just sketches, and I will get around to finishing them. They're on my pile to get finished. There's another.
So, John, it's a very tonal palette too.
It's very much so. That's what I say, because I work on those greys. The first thing I do when I set up a painting is to work a tonal map. So I will paint everything in the tones all the way back, and then bring the colour back on over the top of it. Right. So I get, before I start putting any real colour on there, I've only used two colours, like ultramarine and cad red, or ultramarine and transparent red oxide. They're the only two colours I've used, and that will go all the way back, and then I'll see whether I've got a painting where everything sits back where it's supposed to sit, and the things that are forward dark to where they're supposed to be. Before I put the sky in, and then start to bring some colour. Usually I work from the back forward to bring the colour back on it. But I know then that everything is set up in the right plane. Everything there's distance in there and depth in there already before I get started too far. That's just the way I work. Other people have different ways of doing it, but I find that when I work plein air, the thing is to get the thing done very, very quickly, because you have about 20 minutes.
And that's it. Yeah. So how do you schedule your time, John? And we're going to talk about plein air versus in the studio, because plein air is a very different beast.
Yeah. I don't schedule my time very well. I just go in fits and starts, you know, and I go out painting. Like I was away down at Tumut last weekend, and I did 4 little paintings down there while I had the chance, and I'll bring them back, and I'll get all enthused now, and I'll try and finish them off when I get some time to do it. And then I might not paint for a week, and then I'll go out painting again somewhere, and I get all enthused, and I come back and knock another lot off, you know. And that's just how I work. When I'm enthused, I never get terribly enthused about coming into the studio to paint.
I think that's one of the things, John, when I've spoken to you before, how it's so lovely to see how excited you get about being outside and doing it. And it's kind of like you can't wait to get out there. And there is that magic that happens on site, very rarely sometimes, or often, probably for you, about the capturing of that moment. And I know with plein air work, it's often a lot smaller because of the time schedule and the light changes, and you're a light chaser, you know. I noticed that you've recently been doing, you're a member of the Royal Art Society, and you did something with up at Blackheath, and you have a few other people with you. Yeah. And you're
that's crazy. I did in 3 or 4 days, I did 7 paintings a day and 6 paintings a day and 5 paintings a day when I was up there. Because people say, well, why did you do that? Because what am I going to do when I'm up there? I'm up there to paint, you know, and so I get stuck in, and we go out there about 8 o'clock in the morning, and we knock off about 6 o'clock at night, and I just get stuck in. I put one painting, I put the next one up and do the next one. And if I don't have to travel too far between paintings, I can get a lot done. Yeah, because they're only taking me like an hour each or so, and some of them a bit less. Because you knock them up, they're not finished paintings, but they're as much as you could really get done on site. Then you can finish them off a little bit later on, just to capture that fleeting bit of light that's there. If you're going to wait 2 hours, the light's totally changed by the time you've finished. You know, you've really got that 20 minutes to get everything in, and then you've got a bit of time to finesse it. But if you don't work very, very quickly and get that first bit in, you're just chasing your tail. And you've got things in there that weren't in it before, especially with the mountains. Every time you look up, it's different. Yeah. As the lights move across it, the shadows have moved to a different spot. You looked up and you could see 2 bluffs, and you look down and mix the paint, you look up and there are 3 bluffs. And you look down and mix your paint and look up and there's 1 bluff. Because the light's picking up bits and not picking other bits. So you have to try and remember what you saw first, work really quickly to get it, and then leave it at that, not try to put in bits that are now visible that weren't visible before, because you lose the atmosphere of that painting, the bit that really captured you in the first place.
Tell us, do you ever hit a slump? Do you ever have a day where you wake up and think, no, I can't motivate myself?
Occasionally, you know, when you have an exhibition, if you don't sell many paintings or something like that, sometimes you think, what am I doing this? You know, like it's mostly that doesn't happen very often, but you know, occasionally you just have a bit of a bad run. And the thing that gets me going is going out and painting, Melony. Sometimes I have to make myself come into the studio and finish off some paintings that I've got an exhibition coming up, or it's just a group exhibition up at Dunedoo, like a show, you know, and I've got a painting that I'm going to enter in it, but it closes on Wednesday and I haven't finished it. So I want to put that in. So I have to just do a few touches. I don't have to deliver it.
Painting.
Yes.
I don't have to deliver it for a couple of weeks, but I have to finish the painting because I want to put it in there. I've got other ones I can put in, but I want to put this one in, and I've got 90% finished, but I just need to get it finished off. But I've got to get myself. That's the dangerous ones that are 90% finished and are looking good. Then I think, I get frightened.
Yeah, we understand that point.
I get frightened to come in and
Potential. So, John, how do you tackle the social media, or do you do any of that stuff? Or oh no,
it's always a bit challenging. It's a bit putting yourself out there a bit is always a bit challenging.
Yeah.
But I do Facebook, and I do a fair bit of stuff on Facebook. Just get your name out there. I do a little bit on Instagram. I don't really like Instagram because you've got to use your phone and that to do that, and that's just not as easy for me to do. So I'm old-fashioned. I like to use a desktop computer most of the time. But I do those things and it gets your name out there, which is good because it's the necessary evil. You have to do it so people know who you are, and you make contacts and people buy paintings off me and stuff like that. And they do recognise. I was out painting out in the bush somewhere. And I remember a few times people have come along and had a look at you and they say, "Oh, what's your name?" You say, "John Rice." I said, "Oh, I know you. I've seen you on Facebook, or I've seen your work on somewhere." I thought, well, that's good. At least you're getting out there.
And you do have your work on the Gallery 247 site, so that's connected to a lot of competition
stuff on there for a little bit, but all their shows are in Victoria.
Yeah, bit of an extensive.
It's all Victorian stuff, Like I wish they had a few shows on in New South Wales. Just found it a bit trickier. But I really stopped using them. I use a couple of other online galleries, to work through. And I've got my own one. I've got my own big cartel site that I sell through. But you have to use some of the others because they get the traffic. They also, the downside is they have the competition. Is the downside. They have thousands of bars on there. Thousands of bars on there, so there's a lot of competition. But the good side is they do get the traffic. And much as I hate having to flog out the commission, they do sell a lot of paintings for me. So it's a nice level,
really good for you.
Yeah, they have. Yeah, they've been very, very good. I've sold a lot of stuff through there, and I always encourage people, don't come and look at my site, and I make a lot more money out of it when I look at my site. But you just don't get the traffic to your own. So I get 5 or 6 visitors a day to my site, whereas they get thousands of visitors, every day to their site. And I've just been contacted by one other group over in Europe that do some stuff, and they invite only. Apparently, they asked me to do some stuff, but I'm going to think about it for a couple of months, and then I'll get into them. So I'm going to be going away on a big trip, taking my paints and heading off around Australia, and so I won't be available for a couple of months. I'll have to shut everything down. So I won't be home to sell any paintings or pass any on. So I don't want to get into any new ventures until I get back from that.
Just create anticipation. We'll be out on site creating new work. Oh, good. That's great. I think that's a good sign of a working artist.
Exciting.
I went out with a couple of mates last year. The year before last, it was Joe Cartwright and Don Talentire, a couple of mates of mine. We went out and we hired a house out in Alice Springs for a week and hired a car and flew out there and painted for a week. Every morning we're up and out and painting. And, we just went all day long painting, because they're good guys and very easy guys to get on with, and they're keen painters, and we had a wonderful time.
I think that's a trick with painting with other people. They have to be artists because they won't get bored of when and stuff. They're crazy like chasing light or a really cool spot or where you can park the car, and you have to kind of have that perspective, I think, with the people that you travel with when you're going on a painting workshop. Otherwise it just doesn't work. You're completely distracted. You have to get away from everyone else. It's the point of traveling, right?
Yes.
Well, my wife's very, very good. Like we went down to Flinders Ranges painting trips and that, Alice Springs and that, and she gets a chair out and reads a book, or she goes for a walk.
Happy to let you do that,
out and stuff. She saw more of the Flinders Ranges than I did because I've got pictures of me painting her up at the top of a mountain, painting, and she's gone exploring, So she's very good. She understands that, and she knows I won't be an hour, so I'll do a quick walk, and so she's very, very good like that. And she understands when we go around Australia, we're going to do a bit of painting, and so I'll get up in the morning and go and do a painting, come back, have breakfast, then we'll go and do something for the day. Then I'll go out in the afternoon, 4:30 or something, I go out and do another painting. So I get a couple in a day, and don't disrupt anything I'm doing. We're doing as a family. To go to travel around. We did that when I was over in Tuscany 2 years ago. I went painted over in France and in Tuscany and Sardinia. And the same thing there. My daughter and my wife were with me, and we'd have a nice day out. But I'd have done a painting in the morning and done a painting in the afternoon. Yeah. So I still get 2 paintings a day, and but we didn't miss out, and no one missed out on anything.
So when you're traveling, John, what do you do to keep your paints dry? Like, you can't just whack those wet oil paintings in.
Well, I use a Smirniotis zinc titanium white, and it's a faster drying white. And my paintings will be dry in about a day, day and a half, right? Unless it depends on the colours you use. If I use lemon yellow, it's a very slow dry. And so is transparent red oxide. It just depends on where it is. They can be very slow drying.
And you don't put any medium in, like a liquid or anything in that to dry it?
No, use a bit of terps here and there, but that's only in the wash-in stages. But I do them when we were traveling out. So I just stopped painting a couple of days before we came home. And went overseas. I painted on loose canvas, so they weren't heavy. I had about 25 paintings, I think, that were on loose canvas. So they only stack about that thick and not very heavy in your suitcase. And I took a really little light pochard box off a camera tripod and painted off that.
How did you go with traveling with oil paint, though, John? Like, was an issue?
Don't call it paint.
Artist pigment.
Artist colours. You put it. Just call it.
Oh,
I downloaded. I couldn't find the chemical statements for some of the brands, but Winsor and Newton have got quite a bit of theirs, and I was able to download like the chemical statements and Flashpoint. Over 300 degrees. On the paint and stuff. So I just had them in a plastic container, and I had a lid written on it. I had the stuff shoved in the container with the chemical things, and I had written on it, artist oil colours, and nobody challenged me. I was able to travel overseas back without any problem at all. Because when you look at the Flashpoint of 300 degrees, everyone's going to be on fire if it gets to that temperature, So they're not. You can't take terps or anything though. So I had to get that one over in Italy. That was good fun. Trying to buy it.
Always things to consider.
Buy gum terps, and the fellow in the hardware shop he said, "What do you want? You're a tourist, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "What do you want this stuff for?" I thought I was a terrorist or something, not a tourist. I said, "No, just for mixing paint." "Oh, yeah, right. He's all right then." I had to learn La Trementina, terps, Italian. So I had to go and get a few ones. I had to get it in France as well. So first thing when I got to the country was try and find someone that would sell terps, just so I could do a bit, because I tried painting the first day in Sardinia with just straight paint. It was very hard on rough canvas, a very thick canvas. It's a lot of brush strokes to get the paint to stick on there.
So when are you back in action in terms of workshops and exhibiting?
Well, I'm thinking of doing a workshop on about the 22nd of May here at home. Give me an excuse to clean the studio out, do a workshop here. So I haven't done one here in over 12 months because I've been doing them for other people, in other places. So I haven't got around to doing one of my own here. So I might do that on about the 22nd, 23rd of May.
John, what suburb is here? Can you just let everyone know where is here?
My studio is at 29 Fairlight Road, Mulgoa.
Where is that?
Mulgoa is about 13 kilometres south of Penrith on Mulgoa Road. So you get out on the M4 to Penrith, and you'll see Mulgoa Road. If you turn right, you go into Penrith. If you turn left, you head towards Mulgoa, and then you'll go down.
Which is pure Australian country. Would that be right?
That's what?
Pure Australian country. You got.
It is a very early settlement. Mulgoa is a very historic settlement. It was one of the first settlements in around Sydney. About 1803, 1804, there were farms out here. The Cox family, William Cox, who built the road across the Blue Mountains, he had the land grants here for his sons. So there's still some of the big houses and the big properties here that belong to them from way back then. Winbourne and Fernhill and the Glenmore Golf Club are all Cox properties from back in the early 1800s. St Thomas, 1838 that they built. So it's quite a historic, semi-rural area out here where I live.
Like a good road trip, day out painting with John.
Yeah, it is. It doesn't take long. I mean, to get into the Royal Art Society in Sydney, it takes me 50 minutes. and that's
Yeah,
at
pretty good.
at Lavender Bay. You know, that's so you're on the M4 and the M2 and get in that one over before you go to the Bridgestone, right? So
you are a member of the Royal Art Society. Me too. And everything's been closed down, but there's regular exhibitions, and you teach workshops with them.
I haven't done any with the Royal. No, I haven't. They did ask me to teach there with their oils at one period a couple of years ago, to be the oil painting teacher. But you had to be there every Saturday morning to do that, and I'm not too tied down. That's why I don't teach lessons. I only do workshops, because I don't want to have to be somewhere every Saturday or somewhere every Wednesday, because, you know, like I'm heading off around Australia now for a couple of months. So I like to have the freedom of getting out and going and doing things, not being tied down to that. I can schedule a workshop and it's just a weekend, and that's only one weekend, but I'm not tied down to having every weekend or every. So unfortunately, I would have loved to have done it, but I had to turn that down because I just didn't want to be tied down at this stage.
And I know, John, that you're in a number of galleries. You're at the you're in Newcastle at the C Studio.
Not at Newcastle at the moment. No, I was up there. I had about 5 galleries at Sydney in one time, going back about 15, 20 years ago. You know, but they've all closed down. You know, they're not around anymore. The galleries that were there. There was one at Richmond. There was one down at Narellan. There was one in the Castle Hill. They're all gone. But now I've just, most of my stuff now is just, there was one at Mudgee, it was in here too. But now I've only got stuff in 188 at Katoomba at the moment, plus online and in my own studio here, you know. People can come out here. We have open days, like we have an open studio at the end of the year, usually November, December. But I'm also available anytime by appointment. Anybody wants to come visit me, just give me a call and they can come out and have a look. If the place isn't too big a mess, they're welcome. About and have a look. We
call that creative, not a mess.
Yeah. I used to open on Sundays and things too. On the weekends, I used to open the gallery then, because we get a bit of traffic comes along my road. There's a Mount Schoenstatt up the end of the road where a lot of people go up there for a day out, and there's also a lookout up the end of the road that people go to, the Rock Lookout. So it's quite a tourist road. And I did get quite a bit of traffic along it, but then again, I didn't want to be stuck every Sunday. You're sitting around, you get half a dozen visitors, you know, in the day. I think that's a good way to waste the day. It's not worth it.
You want to get out and paint.
Yeah, I get out and do something else or whatever it is, you know. I still do a lot of things. I still play music. I still play cricket. Bust my finger up yesterday.
I was looking at that. I wondered if it was an art injury.
With my painting hand, but I can still hold the brush.
Oh, no. Well, I'll just say that this is part 1 interview. More to come post travels, John. Thank you so much for being with us today. It's been absolutely.
Well, thank you for inviting me, Melony. It was very nice of you. And Kristine, thank you very much.
It's a pleasure to showcase you, and everyone can see. We'll put some contacts there for John's work. You can go and have a look at his beautiful pieces and maybe get one.
Absolutely. Next exhibition is first 2 weeks of December up at Gallery 188. I've got an exhibition there. So I think it starts on about the 30th of November and runs to the 12th of December. Is the next one. And if anybody wants an oil workshop, 22nd and 23rd of May, Saturday and Sunday. It'll be on my gallery, on my John Rice Gallery that's John Rice Gallery at Big Cartel.
We'll list it
under.
Has a workshops tab, and they can tab on that.
Thank you, John, and we'll wish you happy painting.
Absolutely.
Thanks, guys. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.